Hi everyone, my name is Craig and I am a video director and producer, and in today's video we are taking a look at some Sony A7S III footage. So I'm totally aware and sensitive to the fact that not everybody can afford a $6,500 camera to shoot on, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to work with some of those files and begin practicing with these incredible sensors. I wish when I was starting out that there were just more resources available to me about shooting in log format, as well as footage that I could practice on and have access to. Some of my earlier S-Log 3 edited files look terrible because I did not know what I was doing. So hopefully some of these videos or these clips help you in your journey. I've already made one video about how to color correct S-Log 3 footage on the A7S III, and I'll link that video in the description below so you can check that out. And there's also some footage to download from that video. But today we are looking at the A1. I'll make all of the footage in this video that I show you available to download so you can practice yourself. All of the clips are 4K resolution, 10-bit 422, and 60 frames per second. Feel free to work with the files in whatever software you edit with, and if you decide to post them, feel free to tag me on Instagram at Craig29, and I can see how your edits turned out there. So for today's footage, we're going to look at some wedding film footage, an outdoor concert edit that I was hired to film, and then an engineering camp promo that I was hired to produce a promo for. And this will give you a balance between some indoor and outdoor scenarios to take a look at, and you can play with the different lighting scenarios for indoor and outdoor conditions with S-Log 3. And if you stick around for the end of the video, I will go through a few of these clips and show you how I color corrected them as well. But for now, here's all that footage that is available for you to download down in the description below. So that was all the footage, and now we're going to dive into Premiere and take a look at a few of these clips. So this first one is one of the wedding shots, and here's the, we get the before and the after. Okay, so I almost always start with my curves adjustments, and I've turned off my curves so they're grayed out a little bit on the screen, but you can see kind of what I'm doing. So I always start with this S-curve. It brings, sharpens up the image, tightens up the contrast, makes it look really sharp. One of the things that I wanted to do is kind of remove some of the blues because it was golden hour and I really wanted to hone in on that golden hour feel. So there were a lot of blues in his jacket. So I corrected that and pulled those down, pulled down the purples a little bit and left those oranges and those reds where I wanted them. And then when you turn on this creative tab, you get your saturation and your vibrance and your sharpening here. Gets it close to where I want. And then the basic correction tab is where I do my final adjustments to get it to this point. Really brightened up the image. We can see I added some contrast, brighten up those shadows a little bit, pull down those highlights. Again, we see that before and after. It looks really good. Okay, next shot is another one of these wedding clips. Here's that before and after. Let's see what we're doing here. Kind of same thing. We'll start with our curves adjustments. We can see what we're doing here. Here, let me turn off the creative tab so we get that saturation gone. Yeah, so those curves really are where you're going to get that contrast back. So when you convert S-Log 3 footage to like Rec. 709. Usually what it's doing is taking those curves and adjusting them to a Rec. 709 color space. Here, we're individually manipulating the highlights and the midtones and the shadows to create that kind of Rec. 709 color space, what it would do if you put on like a preset LUT. But we're doing it manually, and I think it's really important to learn how to do it manually here. So again, we see that. We see I kind of did the same thing here with these hue and saturation. Let me make this full screen for a second so you can see what we're doing. You can take a look. We're really dipping down those blues and those purples. I saw these purples were in his jacket, so I wanted to get them off. And then we're leaving these oranges and these reds how we want them to look. So we bring back the creative tab, which is where we get all of our saturation in. We can see that looks really good. And then the basic correction tab is where we just did our fine details. We can see that on and off. Looks great. Next clip. Here's the engineering camp shot. Interesting shot because it's it was an indoor setting. So there's a skylight right above this person, but all of the interior lights are probably about 4,000 Kelvin. And then there's a skylight right above him, which is 5,600 Kelvin. So you got some mixed light color temperatures. So you really got to work with what you can. Let me just show you the curves again. So we really leaned into these shadows here instead of, you know, pushing those highlights up because I exposed properly, like you should. Really exposing for overexposing about 2 stops allows you to bring back those shadows, bring them down, thus reducing the amount of noise in the image. That's about all we did here, except I noticed his skin tones were leaning a little bit green. So there they are. Without this correction, I brought the hue versus hue right around the orange and the yellows, which are registering as his skin tones. Brought those up, elevated them just a hair, which will get rid of some of that green. You can see that here as I click back and forth. Here's a quick look at the basic correction that I did to get it where it needs to be. Kind of just reducing that overall, those highlights, bringing them down to a level that I want them, tightening the contrast and adding a little bit of warmth to help with that daylight temperature that was coming in from the skylight. Okay, last clip is this concert, this outdoor concert. So we're dealing with natural daylight temperature, but another problem was they were actually in this forest of trees that were really green and brown and had natural tones. So that created this problem with the skin tones, which I still had some trouble with, honestly. I don't think that this is exactly how I would want to color correct it. But let's take a look here. We turn that creative tab off to get that saturation gone. We'll take a look at these curves here. We can see what we're doing. Again, using that S curve to tighten that contrast, fixing some of these hue sliders. You can't really see it because I turned the creative tab off. Bring that back. We should be able to see it a little better. Really just adjusting their skin tones again. S-Log always has a little bit of wonky skin tones, so you want to make sure that you can correct those individually if you need to. And in the basic correction tab, I noticed that it was leaning a little bluer than I'd like, and their skin tones were just a little bit green and not as vibrant, so I adjusted some of those settings. Here you can kind of see a theme with these controls. They all kind of have the same theme with bringing that contrast up, highlights down, shadows up a bit, whites down, and we'll, you know, depend on what the scene looks like, we'll adjust the blacks. But yeah, so that's just a little dive into my color correction process. Please let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you downloaded the footage. I'd love to hear what your experience was like with it. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, feel free to subscribe because I have more videos like this coming in the very near future with the Sony A7 IV, and I'm also going to do some S-Cinetone footage from the A1, the A7S III, and the A7 IV. So stay tuned for that. Feel free, again, leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Much love. Thanks for stopping by.